So I have an interview scheduled, and I want to make sure that I'm fully prepared for this interview. The first thing I want to work on is my handshake, because I know in different articles that I've read that a good, strong handshake means that I'm assertive, I'm independent, and I'm strong, and I'm likely to be a good candidate or a good fit for the job. However, the interviewer is Chinese. Had I not done my research, I would have made a big mistake, because in the Chinese culture, handshakes or strong, firm handshakes are actually looked at as disgraceful and disrespectful. This power standard is all about recognizing the fact that we are in different cultures. So this power standard is all about how we analyze a particular point of view or cultural experience reflected in a work of literature that's outside our culture, the United States. We have to understand that cultures vary around the world. So within that, we want to make sure that as we're reading, we can get an insight into a country's culture, aka customs. And it also guarantees that we'll never run out of reading material. So let's get started. The first thing we have to understand is that values and beliefs are going to change across cultures. We have a set of systems and value beliefs concerning marriage. Another country, another culture has the same system, aka marriage, but their values and beliefs about marriage may be different. However, the overall theme, celebrating life or marriage or sexuality, things like that, they're going to ring true for all, but it just really depends on the culture about how they attack it. So point number one, differences in cultures sometimes lead to internal and external conflict. Remember, we've been talking about it all semester. It all comes back to the drama, aka the conflict. Did you know that in the United States, eye contact is seen as a sign of respect? You hear it all the time. Look at me when I'm talking to you. But in the Chinese culture, it's seen as disrespectful to stare into another person's eyes. So if you notice, some Chinese men and women, they may not look you directly in the eye, but they kind of look in that general area. Now, this is a custom, and a society's customs is reflected in its culture. Tip number one, culture. It's a set of values and beliefs that influence the behavior of a group of people. For example, in countries like Afghanistan, marriages are often arranged based on wealth and status. In the United States, marriages are mostly arranged by emotional connections and or love. In some cultures, family is sacred and you do anything to protect family. And when you ask about someone's family, something that we typically do, who do you live with? Who do you live with? Who's your mom? Who's your grandma? In some cultures, asking about your specifics of a family is rude or disrespectful. We learn about these different cultures in these different countries by reading literature from those cultures. Now, culture can shape a person's perspective. VIP number two. Perspective is how you see things, a way of seeing something or a way of thinking. We have to realize that in different cultures, they have different expectations. The Chinese culture has a high expectations on students and education, whereas in America, we are more of a hands off. We like for you to try to find your own way. We learn about these different perspectives and cultures through the conflicts that occur. So we already know internal conflict. That's the struggle that happens within the character. And we know about external conflict. External conflict is the struggle between an external and internal force. So it could be a clash between two countries, two cultural groups in the same countries, or even individuals that come from different cultures. Or what if you are an American, but your family is a different culture? So you may have external conflicts where you're trying to be who you are, how you were raised, and the environment you were raised in versus the cultural expectations that you have. We learn about these once again through literature. So like we've been talking about all semester, when we read anything, it's all about the characters and the conflict they endure. So when we're reading different texts from different cultures, that literature can reveal the external conflicts of a given culture. So this is a passage from Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. Let me set it up for you. It's set in Africa, and it's about the Igbo tribe before the invasion of Europeans. Now, now we know Africa Igbo tribe. So we know there's a set of cultural expectations, values, and beliefs that are going to influence our main character, Nwoye. Now, Nwoye is going to have her own conflicts, both internal and external. The internal could be from where she is trying to be who she is, trying to be who he is. The external could be where he is trying to be who he is, but also be who he is within the expectations culturally of his tribe. So let's read. Whenever Nwoye's mother sang this song, he felt carried away to the distant scene in the sky where a vulture, Earth's emissary, sang for mercy. That was the kind of story that Nwoye loved, but he now knew that those stories were for foolish women and children, and he knew that his father wanted him to be a man. And so he feigned that he no longer cared for women's stories, and when he did this, he saw that his father was pleased. So the first thing we have is Nwoye. Nwoye's mother told him stories about the animals and how the animals sang for mercy of the earth. And Nwoye loves these stories. He loves them. However, he knows that those stories were for foolish women and children, not for a young boy like himself. Whereas young boys should be fascinated about things about war and violence and bloodshed, not fantasy stories about mythical, magical animals saving the world. And he knew that his father wanted him to be a man. This line right here is all about the cultural expectations of Nwoye's tribe. They expect for men to be men. So what did Nwoye do? He feigned that he no longer cared for women's stories. And when he did this, he saw that his father was pleased. So he pretends to not like these stories so that he can please his father. Now, I've never been to the Igbo tribe. I've never been to Africa yet, but I can totally relate to Nwoye. I can totally relate to his conflict. His father wants him to behave like a man should in their tribe, whereas he wants to dream about the mythical animals. So already, even though I've never been to the Igbo tribe, I've never been to Africa, I have a cultural connection to his plight. Let's take another look at another external conflict. So, Amy Tan's text, The Joy Luck Club, is set in San Francisco. And it's about the narrator of Waverly. She's 9 years old, and she's this brilliant chess champion. However, her mother came to the United States as an adult. She came from China. So she has these expectations, customs, values, and beliefs that are 100% Chinese, whereas Waverly, who was born in the United States, is a Chinese American. So let's read this text and discuss. Go ahead and pause and read now. So the first thing we notice is that Waverly's mom is taking her shopping every Saturday. That's a requirement. And everywhere they go, they introduce me. You have moms that do that. Hey, this is my daughter. You know, she knows how to do the bank head out so good. And Waverly is upset and irritated and embarrassed about this. How many times have you been embarrassed by your parents? And mom gets mad. You're ashamed to be with me? She assumes that her not wanting to be recognized as her daughter is saying she's embarrassed by her mother. And Waverly's like, no, it's not that. It's just embarrassing. And so Waverly makes the decision not even to argue because she realizes she's crossed the line and that by saying, don't introduce me as your daughter, that's actually disrespectful. Whereas in our culture, we could be like, you don't got to do that. But it's still, so it may not be disrespectful here in the American culture, but clearly in the Chinese culture, being disrespectful to your parents in any setting is not allowed. So now let's put two and two together. So we have two different texts from two different places in the world. representing two different cultures. This power standard is all about taking those two texts and bridging them together, finding the connection. So think back to the two passages you've just read. Which option best describes how the conflict in the Joy Luck Club connects with the conflict in Things Fall Apart? Go ahead and pause and answer the question. So the overall theme and connection that these two texts have is that parents have specific set of expectations for their children. Waverly's mother expects to be able to brag about her daughter, and Nwoye's father expects for his son to be what the Igbo culture considers manly. Therefore, both texts address the conflict that occurs when parents have specific cultural expectations of their children. The third point we want to focus on is the fact that literature can reveal internal conflicts that cultures create within characters. That's basically saying that sometimes in literature we have to look at the internal conflicts that are created within a character's culture and how those internal conflicts affect their decision makings. Now, in this poem we're getting ready to read, Search for My Own Poem, author Sujata Bhatt expresses her fear of losing her identity as a Gujarati-speaking Indian. So, at the time she wrote this poem, she was learning to study English and she had a little bit of anxiety about losing her native tongue or her mother tongue. So let's read the poem and then discuss. So go ahead and pause and read. So the first thing you notice that she's basically answering a question. So she's saying, I have lost my tongue. Now, she hasn't literally lost her tongue. She's using this figuratively, meaning that her language, she's losing it. So she's saying, what now? So she realizes that she has two tongues in her mouth. Her first language, and then this new language that she's learning, English. Her fear is that she eventually is going to struggle learning the new language, and as she better gets with the new language, the foreign tongue, she's going to begin to lose her mother tongue. Now, you've never been to the country of Gujarat, which is in India. However, if you are someone that speaks two languages and you have a mother tongue and you have the foreign tongue, which is the second language, you can totally relate to her conflict that she is experiencing. So answer this question for me. How does the expectation that bots speaking English and fit into American culture creates a moral dilemma for her? Pause and let's find out. How many of you chose C? It's causing Bot to struggle with how to hold on to her original culture identity while embracing a new culture and language. You're exactly right. So what she's dealing with, she's not dealing with finding a husband. It doesn't even talk about that. She's also not dealing with how she should move back to India or stay in America. So we're looking at B and C. C is clearly the best answer because we see this struggle that she has of learning this new foreign tongue but keeping her mother tongue. Lines like, you could not use them both together even if you thought that way. Those of you that speak multiple languages, how many of you tried to kind of bridge both languages together? It's a little bit of a struggle. So the issue is you learning this new culture, this new language, this new way of living, but also keeping who you are. That creates a moral dilemma. So even though even if you don't even speak a second language, you definitely can understand the moral dilemma that she creates. So that's how we learn from different cultures, by reading the text and the poems and looking at the artwork and the music from that culture. And then we find a way to bridge that connection and make a connection to our own personal lives. Pretty cool stuff. Last thing, remember, this power standard is all about how we look at texts from different cultures and try to find a way to find the connection that both texts are discussing. So our second text is Chinua Achebe's short story, Marriage is a Private Affair, which we're going to read. It's a great story. This young man is in conflict with his tribe's cultural values. So, our main character's father has followed the Nigerian Igbo tradition, and he found a wife. But The son is in love and engaged to another woman. In the Igbo culture, you don't do that. When your dad finds you a wife, you marry that woman your dad found for you. They don't believe in falling in love. So now, Namika, our main character, our protagonist, he struggles internally with when and how to tell his father when he intends to marry Nini. So Nini begins the conversation below. So let's take a minute, pause, and read this excerpt, and then let's get to the question. So, once again, I've never been to Africa yet, and I do not know a lot about the Igbo tribe, but I definitely can make some connections here. Right here, this sign right here, yes, they are mostly unhappy. The engagement is not arranged by them. In our case, it's worse. You're not even an Igbo. How many guys have ever been in a relationship and your mother or your father said, oh, they're not even this, they're not even that? In the Jewish culture, it's sometimes unheard of for you to marry someone that is not Jewish. In my family does do not really care who we date as long as we're treated with respect. So this is why you see this third paragraph. Nini is thinking it's a joke that the man that she loves actually has to marry somebody else. So now that we've got some insight into the text, let's go to the question. How is the internal conflict that Namika experiences in this passage different from Bot's internal conflict? So we took these two texts and now we're trying to compare them and figure out a way to bridge and make a connection. Go ahead and read the choices, pause me, and then check back in. So as you can clearly see, B and D should have immediately been eliminated. They really don't have anything related to the conflicts that either character is experiencing. So we're left with A and C. C is the better answer because it directly discusses Namika's conflict from his father's traditional ideas about marriage, and Bot's conflict stem from her trying to embrace a new language while retaining her old one. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this power standard, but I wanted to make sure that we covered the fact that as we're reading literature this semester, or as we're finishing up this semester, it's important to recognize that as we read texts from different world countries, different world cultures, we have to find a way to take those different texts and connect them and analyze them based on our culture. And when we read text from different culture, it allows us to get a glimpse and insight into that country's beliefs, values, and morals. All right, check you on the flip side. Have a good one. Happy learning.